Some of you, if you've known me, might have known me through Noteboom Tutorials. It's my wife's maiden name. I just redid the site and rebranded myself because everybody knows me as Dan, but it's all the same. And basically, my a brief background: I've been in the publishing industry for plus 20 years, magazine publishing, and got out of that in the early 2000s. Started doing some online stuff, and also worked at Apple for about 3 years as a genius while I was doing my online stuff. And then I moved into education. We have a few schools around here that are all Apple based, and I still help out a school that's less than a mile away from me. I work about 8 hours a week there, just kind of helping them out. Again, they're all iPad and MacBook Air based, and I do my site, which is, like I say, Dan's Tutorials. I used to have some tutorials, and some of them are still in the App Store, but Apple changed their policy, and they no longer are allowing Apple hardware and software tutorials and things like that in the App Store. So I had to move over everything online. So that's why I'm online and not in the App Store. But yeah, basically, Dan's Tutorials, and I just create little lessons, and usually I do one or two a day, and I have over 1,300 of them on my site. And over the last 6 months with the pandemic and everything, I started playing around with Zoom a little bit more. I've always, for several years, I've worked with the Naples Mac user group, and just kind of slowly expanded. And now I work with Alaska, Hawaii user group. I just did a presentation with the New Jersey. So I'm getting more and more comfortable with this whole Zoom, I think, as we all are, kind of thing. So now I just, I've made myself available to different groups such as yours. And my format really has been just a Q&A. My goal was really to start, more classes and things like that, and how to use a specific program or app. But when I started my own AMAs, I have my own Ask Me Anythings on my site. It I started out as we're going to just do this for a few weeks or for a month or two, and then we'll get into more of the classes. But what's come to play is just that everyone has questions, which I'm completely fine with. If that's how I help people, that's how that I'm completely comfortable with that. For the last 4 or 5 months, since I've been doing these AMAs, they've all been Q&A, and with these user groups, the same kind of thing. People have questions, so maybe I can help them with some of my answers. So that's going to be the format of this. I've gotten pretty good with monitoring the chat. I do. I run as you would say, a loose ship. If someone has a question, just raise your hand, and I'll try to answer it on the fly. My training at Apple has taught me to be pretty quick, because people would just come and you have 15 minutes, and you've got to answer everything within 15 minutes. So so I'm pretty loose with my format. So on that note, we can get started with some of the questions that were sent to me ahead of time, and then we'll go from there. So, this one has actually been quite popular. The M1 laptops and the M1 chip. What is the deal with them not supporting more than one external monitor? Should I buy one? Should I wait? Are they any good? This kind of thing. So the question that I have here directly is, what's the deal with them not supporting more than one external monitor? And from what I understand, I do not have any inside information from Apple. I don't have any inside connections. I mean, I know some people in the retail and some people in the education side of it, but Apple's pretty tight these days. It's not like the old days where they had a lot of loose lips. They don't give us anything extra. I read about it just as much as anyone else, and I don't really go down that rumor game too much anymore, because most of the time they seem to be wrong, and I get my hopes up, and then all of a sudden it's like, kind of thing. So I don't really go down that road too much. And when I start seeing things bubble up, and if you know, I see it from 2 or 3 different sources, like as with anything, then I'm like, okay, well maybe, and then I look to see who the source is from, and if they're usually correct, then I'll give them a little bit more merit. You know, one of those things. But with the laptops not supporting more than one external monitor, so for those of you that don't know, the M1 computers have limitations on how many external monitors they can support. And I don't think it's an M1 thing. I think it's a graphics chip thing, but I could be completely wrong. And maybe they have the graphics chip inside the M1. Um, but I can tell you this, there is a limitation. And I believe it is hardware, not software, because they were wondering if, you know, if it's going to be able to handle more monitors down the road. The laptop, the MacBook Air, can handle one extra monitor. The Mac Mini can handle 2. And the way that it does it is it does it through 2 different ports. It has an HDMI port and it has a Thunderbolt port. So you'll connect one up to, you know, the Thunderbolt and the other one up to the HDMI. So again, it's not like the old days where the Thunderbolt port, I have a MacBook Pro 16-inch, 2 years old, 2019. I could literally daisy chain monitors, you know, a few different monitors. You can't do that with the M1s. I don't know what's going to happen. You know, it could be just because the Mac Mini and the MacBook Air are not necessarily, you know, I don't want to say they're not professional kind of grade kind of thing. So maybe that's a limitation, and they just wanted to keep the cost down on that. But I don't think it's software. And my guess is that you will see with the MacBook Pro, when that is released, and possibly the iMac, you will see better monitor support. Um, so that would be what I would deduce out of all that. Another question that somebody had on the M1, and there's a lot of problems with the I shouldn't say it that way. There are issues with the M1 because it is so new. It is such a new, you know, it's a new chip, and you know, there's issues. And one person has an issue. They have an 8 terabyte Western Digital MyBook external drive, and sometimes when they wake it up after it goes to sleep, the hard drive is blank. Nothing is there. It's there, just that the Mac doesn't see it. So you know, I'm assuming they probably have to unplug it and plug it back in, and then all the stuff is there.
That was my question.
Oh, okay. Is that how it goes? You unplug it and then you plug it back in?
You know, I haven't tried that one yet. I just shut the computer down and reboot it, and
Oh, okay.
it comes back.
My guess is if you just unplug the drive and plug it back in, it'll work. But I don't know. I am one of those people that that some people would not agree with me at all. I just unplug drives. You know how you're supposed to eject them, and you know, I just unplug them. You know, and I get the alert, and it says next time, please eject it before you. Okay, maybe next time I'll do that. I don't.
I will say that I haven't seen the problem in several days. You know,
Okay.
I got the latest Big Sur.
Big Sur.
Yeah, 11.
So yeah, that's the other thing. So you have the M1 and you have Big Sur. You have two major things going on there. And when I say major, Big Sur is a major update, not just so much for the looks of it. They changed the looks, obviously, as most people know. But they really change what happens behind the scene, and it's optimized for the M1. As an example, in Catalina, if everyone's familiar with partitions, prior to Catalina, all of your stuff was in one partition, one hard drive, one partition. With Catalina, they separated that out. The system software is on one partition, all of your documents and everything else, that's on another partition. But they didn't lock down the system. That's a step. Now with Big Sur, they actually locked down the system partition. And again, it's all about, I shouldn't say again, but it's all about privacy and protecting that system from different things. So they are locking down that system, which, you know, can be especially in the school environment, it's a pain in the butt for us. But we get through it, and there's tools that help us out. But really, what they're doing is they're just slowly locking things down to help protect our computers. So you're getting a double whammy. You're getting Big Sur, which has a lot of underneath changes, and you're getting an M1. And I know they're a lot better with Big Sur than what they were with Catalina. When they released Mac OS Catalina, that was a mess. It was most people said don't upgrade, till several months later. Mac OS Big Sur was far better, but there's still issues going on with it. And I think what you're going to see, like what possibly what happened is the update fixed something like that. They try to get everything done, but when it goes out to the masses, they miss different things. I was going to suggest, if that doesn't fix it, what you could do is go into your system preferences, and I'd just try this. You can tell your hard drive not to go to sleep. Now, it's always spinning at that time, but at least maybe that might be what it is. And in the meantime, if it still does it, put your tell your hard drive not to go to sleep. If that fixes it, that's great. But then also go to apple.com/feedback and let Apple know that there's an issue, and maybe in a future update they'll get that fixed, and then you can turn that back off. So as you update, turn it off, see if it fixes a problem, and hopefully eventually they'll fix it. So yeah. Let's see, that covers that one. And then Linda had a question on the iPhone 12. How can she start over from scratch? And I'm assuming when you, from scratch is you just want to erase everything. Is Linda here? I see a Linda Reese.
Yes, Linda's here. Your microphone is muted, Linda, if you can unmute that. Hopefully she's still in front of her camera. I saw her a minute ago.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. What I mean is I have stuff that has been transferred over multiple times that I don't want, period, and which means I think I'm going to have to start entering all of my contacts in by hand again because it is so messed up. I actually started off transferring, well, I shouldn't say started off. I handed in my iPhone 7 this year, and I have gone through 3 iPhone 12 since.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I know. And I constantly have problems, but I don't know whether or not it's, the user having difficulty understanding all of the newest, even though I keep updating and updating and updating. I think that I'm writing over a lot of old stuff since God knows when. So I'd like to start fresh.
Just start fresh.
Right. I don't have anything that I have to worry about with,
Okay.
old apps. I don't even care anymore. I want to use
Okay.
I want to use it as a phone. I want to, have it at my disposal and not worry about anything else. So yeah.
Okay.
And I do know that I can, just restart. But when I restart, I want to know, where do I restart to, and where do I go from there, and what kind of other things that you can give us on iOS that would be helpful in moving forward.
Okay. Well, I'll first show you how to reset it, and I'll show you there's a couple of different reset options that we have. So I'll explain what the differences are between those. So I'm going to share my screen here. Do I have sharing? Oh, no. Is it possible you could give me sharing?
Are you going to share with me?
No, with everyone. Nope,
Okay.
with everyone.
Click share down at the bottom.
I got to allow ringmasters to share your screen. Oh, and maybe it's me too. Open system preferences. And I need to let Ring, my Mac, let's see, hold on. And screen recording, Ring Central Meetings. And okay, it says it needs to quit and reopen. So let me try a different way of doing this. Because is in use, please. Okay, let me close that. Stop share. Sorry about this. All right, can you see my phone? Is that?
Yes, yes.
You are?
No,
okay.
no, I see that you're starting the screen sharing.
But you don't see my phone?
You're going to have to quit and come back in. So if you had to go to system preferences to grant Ring Central permission, you have to quit and come right back in. But you can do that real quick.
All right, I'm back, right? Sorry about that. I didn't mean to quit out of there. But all right. So I got my speaker here, and let's try this again. There we go. All right. So you can see my screen here, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And there's my notes, but we're going to power up my phone here, and we're going to get back to business. I use an app called Reflector that allows me to share my phone here. So let me get rid of these dialog boxes and stuff that's in the way. Record this computer screen. Yeah. Okay. All right. So if you want to reset your phone, what you'll need to do is go to your settings app. And then under general, at the very bottom, we have reset. Now there's a few different reset options that we have here. If you just want to erase everything and start over, basically it's like you're taking the phone out of the box. Then what you do is you erase all content and settings. That's just going to wipe the phone out. This is great if you want to, give the phone to someone, sell the phone to someone. If you're trading it in with Apple, you'll have to do this. You'll most likely have to enter in your Apple ID because, Find My iPhone is on, so they have to turn that off. I mean, it just completely wipes it out. So that's how you can just erase it and just start fresh, just like you took it out of the box. Another option, if you are having some problems, but you don't really want to erase everything, this is another option, is reset all settings. What this will do is this erases all of the preferences. For everyone that's on a Mac, you know how the Mac has its preference files, and that keeps all of the different preferences for your Mac. In the old days, you don't have to do it so much anymore with Mac OS, but I'm going years ago. One way of fixing issues was delete the preference file. And then when the Mac started up, it would recreate that preference file, and then hopefully everything, or if the app started back up, then everything would be fine. Your preference files, just for fun, if I go up to Go here, are in your library. I'm holding down the Option key, goes to your library. This is a hidden folder, but you're going to see library here. It's a little grayed out, but this is all the internal stuff, your cache files, things like that. But there's going to be one here called Preferences, and here's all the preference. These are all different app. Let me change my view here. So, these are all Apple, but if I keep going down, here's Parallels. I use Parallels. Google Chrome, here's the P list. So that keeps all of the information for that particular application, all the default settings and things like that. So back to the iPhone, when you reset all settings, for the most part, it's like getting rid of all of these files. So when you open up an app, it's not going to remember a lot of the stuff that you've set up for it before. It's not going to remember any networks that you've connected to. So you're going to have to connect back up to networks and all that. But this is a good intermediate step to try to figure out if you're having something not quite work right and you've narrowed it down to it's more than one application. Obviously, the first thing, now I'm getting into troubleshooting, but the first thing with troubleshooting is trying to figure out where the problem is. If it's a specific app all the time, force quit the app. If that doesn't do it, delete the app and then re-download it. And then if that doesn't do it, then what you may want to do is erase all the settings or reset all the settings. Now, again, this would narrow it down to maybe it's a phone problem. So then you have to go and erase all the preferences. If it's a network issue, you can reset the network settings. Maybe you're having problems connecting up to a specific network. We used to use this. Now, when I worked at Apple over 10 years ago. So it's been a while. But this was a common thing that we would do. And my guess is they probably don't do it too much anymore. But this was a common thing. We would say, okay, what's going on with the problem? In your case, with the contacts, probably the first thing I would do is reset all the settings and then have you go through and try it again. And if that doesn't work, then I would say, come back. And then what we'll do, or I would show you how to erase all the contents and settings and, see if that fixes it. Because the problem with force quitting an app or deleting an app is when you bring that app back in, it also will bring in the preferences aren't erased. So that issue is still there. This is also the problem with a backup. If you were to erase all content and settings and then restore a backup, guess what you're restoring? That bad preference file or whatever that issue is still could be in your backup. So you're not backup, it's a good solution to bring in the backup and it may work, but it may also not cure the problem because you may be bringing the problem back in. So there's multiple steps that you have to take when you have issues like that. Phone went to sleep there. So that's how. Oops, I don't want to do that. That's how you can go through and troubleshoot. And like say, if you just want to start over, just erase all content and settings. But you may want to just try the reset all settings too, and just see if that works. If it doesn't, you've lost nothing except a little bit of time, but you may have fixed everything also. So does that help?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move this over here. What else do I have? That's really, as far as the questions I got, that's it. Outside of, more general stuff like my favorite applications, things like that. Some of the oddest things that I've seen.
I got a question.
Yeah, so that's my thing. Does anyone else have any questions before I go into, some of the other stuff?
I have Big Serve and I installed it and everything from scratch. And one of the things that happens every once in a while, and it's quite a bit, is that when I double click on a program to launch it, it just sits there for a long period of time. And then all of a sudden, after maybe a minute or 60 seconds or 30 seconds or something like that, what it will do is come up and say, you don't have permissions to launch that program. And then if I get rid of it and then hit it, it launches. Is anybody else having that problem?
Are these Apple apps or are these third-party apps?
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
Okay. My thinking, so with the Apple, there are different permissions, your file structure and all that. There's all kinds of different permissions for different users. And when I'm talking users, I'm not talking you and I. The Mac OS is a Unix system, and there's other users that go along with it. And but the Mac, every file and folder, I'll share my screen again. When I look at let's go with this documents folder here. If I want to view the permissions on it, you're going to see it says I have custom access here. You know, let's try, here, we'll just create a new folder here. And with this one, Dan's Tutorials has, that's my username, has read and write restrict, you know, I can read and write to it, but the staff and everyone, staff being a Unix thing, not, I don't have a staff, I'm a one-man operation. My wife helps me out a little bit, but you know, basically we're a two-person operation. This is a Unix thing. The staff can read only and everyone else can read only. Every folder has these different permissions, and an application really is a folder. If I go to my applications folder here and let's open up stocks, if I go, it's a package. So when I select this, it's a folder with all of the different stuff in it. So there could be something going on with the permissions. Again, all these files and folders within this folder have different permissions. I go to signature, and you're going to see that the system has read and write while the wheel has read only. I have no idea what they are, but that, you know. So what you need to do is you need to reset those permissions. That'd be the first thing that I would think, is that that's what you need to do. Now, there are a few different ways to do that. Disk utility will do that. And for those not familiar with disk utility, it's in your applications folder. And there's a utilities folder. Everyone has this, and it has a number of different utilities, one of them being disk utility. When I select this, I can see all of my disks that are connected. And what I'm able to do is run first aid on it. This will go through and see if there's any errors and try to fix them. How old is your Mac? Is it
It's a MacBook Pro 2019.
Okay, so it probably has an SSD hard drive?
Yes,
solid state? Okay, so you really don't run into these problems too much with solid state. That's a big advantage of solid state. With the spinning hard drives, first aid it helps out more. But it still could. First thing I would do is I would run first aid on it and just see if that does it. Another thing you can do is you can repair the permissions. And it used to be a separate, disk utility has changed over the years. And unfortunately with Big Sur, it's like they're slowly taking some of the features away. As far as I know, there is no permissions, and maybe it's because it's an APFS, but I'm gonna segue into one of the other questions, some of my favorite apps. I am not a fan of virus software for the Mac. I'm not a fan of you know, any software that constantly monitors your Mac. And the reason is we just don't have that kind of a problem necessarily on a Mac. I mean, I guess it all depends on where you're going, what sites you're visiting, and what you do. But generally speaking, you know, there's still to this day very few viruses on the Mac. Now, that's not saying there's not malware. Malware there is, but as far as viruses are, there's not that much difference. And the difference between a virus and malware, a lot of people will get this confused, is virus, like any typical virus, can go and replicate itself on its own, where a malware needs some interaction. So you go and open up a package, open up a document from your mail app, you are interacting with that. You are installing that malware by double clicking on that. A virus will just go and find its way in and do its damage without you doing anything. So that's the difference between the two. So in order to stop malware, you just don't open documents and stuff from people you don't know. You can put malware detection software on your computer. Those are pretty much non-invasive. They don't slow down your computer too much. The problem with virus software is, and I might be old school, but they, I would call them kind of scammers. They want to get your money, and they don't really do that much. And they're terrible. They slow down your computer, and they're very hard to install. Which, to me, if you're legit, you should be able to uninstall it. Same thing with on my site. If you want to cancel, you should be able to cancel. There's no need for my service, then cancel. There's no need for, I don't want to use that virus software. You should be able to get rid of it. If you look at a lot of them, they make it very difficult because they want to get that money. So they're in it for the wrong kind of thing. So saying all that, the software that I personally use is called Clean My Mac. And there's also Malwarebytes. Malwarebytes is another one. They're both available in the App Store. But Clean My Mac, I'm going to open it up here, does a number of different things. First of all, it will watch for malware. So then if you see something, it'll get rid of it. It'll ask you to get rid of it. It will get rid of system junk and your caches. This could be a good troubleshooting thing as well, because it's going to get rid of some of those hidden files that are no longer needed. It'll free up space by getting rid of other languages. When you install an application, there's other languages that are installed with that application. Well, if you only need the one language, that's taking up space, and it'll get rid of that kind of thing. But back to the optimization, and back to your question here, you're going to see we have optimization. What this will do is it will go through and optimize your Mac, and then also it'll run maintenance scripts on there. And, it could be anywhere from checking the permissions, back on the permissions of the file, and all that kind of stuff. The nice thing about this application, and again, Malwarebytes is another one. This is just one that I use, but those are two that I actually do recommend if people have problems. If you want to try this application, I am not affiliated with them. I do, they don't, as far as I know, they have no idea who I am. I don't have an affiliate agreement with them or anything like that. It's just, this is truly just an application that I can recommend because I use it and I have not had a problem with it. I've used it for years. But if you go to macpaw.com, what you can do is download a trial, try it out for a while, see if you like it. And then if you like it, you can go back to the App Store and purchase it. And that is usually what I recommend people to do. If they want to find a software, unfortunately, the App Store does not offer good trials. Developers have gotten around it a little bit with little things here and there. But generally, what I recommend doing is going to the website. So I would go to MacPaw. Here it is, free download. I get to try it out. If I like it, I can buy it through MacPaw. But I actually do like to buy it through the App Store. So I like to try it outside of the App Store because Apple doesn't offer a good, clean trial kind of thing. And then when I purchase it, I will go back to the App Store and purchase it. And why do I go back to the App Store and purchase it? Well, I used to feel a little bit bad because Apple took 30% of their thing. So if I was paying $30 for this, Apple got $10 of it. So that was a little like, kind of thing. But I love the licensing and how it installs and the management. And if I get a new Mac, I can just go back to the App Store. I don't have to worry about these license keys and this, that, and the other. And also, if you have multiple Macs, in most cases, you can, if you use the same App Store ID, I have multiple Macs, including my wife's Mac, but we use the same App Store ID. I can install this application on her computer as well because you can share it on up to 5 different devices. So I don't have to pay for another license key. On top of that, Apple just changed in January their agreements, and if a developer makes less than $1 million, they now get, I think it's 85%. So Apple is only taking 15%. So now they're getting, Apple's taking a smaller chunk. So this developer is still going to make money even if you download it from the App Store. Now, if they're making over $1 million, okay, that's a whole, you're in a different tier there. But for the small developer, as an example, with me, I do still have apps in there. I mean, they're old, but they're still useful. It's not like the Mac has changed that much. If someone wanted to download a tutorial, I now might even be 10%. I now make 90%. So if I sell that app for $5, Apple's only going to take 50 cents instead of $1.50. So now I think the App Store is actually a good experience for downloading. But always go to the website and look to see if there's a free download, and then you can try it out and see if you like it. And do the same thing with Malwarebytes. See if Malwarebytes is something better than Clean My Mac. Both of them are good in my mind. But back to your question, try these optimization and maintenance things and just see if that helps with that.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
I do have Clean My Mac, and
Okay.
I just never thought about running it. I just ran it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you. But when you said it would clean up other languages, I use my Mac to take my Spanish lessons, so I don't want other languages cleaned up.
Yeah, I should clarify that. Most apps are localized, which means they will have files in there that change the language of what shows in the menu bar and things like that. So it's not going to change, it's not going to change how the app performs. It's going to change what is shown. Actually, you're not going to be able to, if you switch your Mac over to Spanish, your menus are in Spanish and everything's in Spanish, that application would not be in Spanish.
I don't switch it that way. But
right. So that's why, I should clarify that that's really all it does. So.
Because it's starting to understand when I write a message in Spanish. It's not forever correcting my spelling to put it back into better English. Sometimes it will let me write a whole paragraph without correcting my spelling, because originally it would take my Spanish spelling and try to put it in English all the time.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty much what it does. It like I say, it's not going to change that side of it. But it just removes the localized files. Yeah, and actually, I just looked at it and I didn't see that on there. Maybe they don't have that anymore because of localized files. But that's what so every app, not every app, but most apps have localized files. And it'll remove the ones that aren't in your language. That's, and it frees up space that way.
Thank you.
But you always, whenever you run that, you do have, it's going to ask you, if I wanted to free up space, it's going to give me a list of all my files, and then I can deselect what I don't want to remove. So it's just not going to go and say, okay, these are all gone. You will have a list there where you can see what. But I say that everyone has a backup, right? Everyone's using Time Machine. Yeah. All right.
In the olden days.
I always got to stick that in there. I can't stress enough, how important backups are. And Apple makes it really, really easy with Time Machine, and hard drives are not that expensive. So there's just really, no reason to not have it. And it's also great for something like this, to where, oh crap, now I screwed up my computer. You can just restore that backup, and it's a little bit of time, but at least you're not,
so the old airport, I think that's what mine was called a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's actually not functional anymore.
You run into a lot of problems. I just switched over to a different backup system probably about three months ago. I was using Airport. I have an Airport Extreme with an internal hard drive, and it would error out quite a bit. The other thing that I learned is we have a small house. I have about 1,500 square feet, a little less than that actually. And My office is probably 20, 30 feet from my router, from my airport, when I had the airport. But I did not get a good signal. And, oh, my camera's not on. Okay. I did not get a good signal. Our house is about 100 years old. So, it's not like it's the newer drywall. So, it affected the signal quite a bit and all that. So in my infinite wisdom, I have more airports. I went and added another airport, thinking that, you can, if for people that are familiar with airports, you can extend the network. Well, I soon found out that when you extend the network, that's such old technology. The airport was great in its day, but it's not anymore. And this is the reason why. I have 100 megabyte speed. I go and extend that network. Immediately, it cuts my speed down to 50 megabyte. If I go and add another airport, which I did because I didn't realize this until I did some research, I have another airport. Well, I'm still not getting good speed in my office. What do? I'll go and add another airport. What that did is that cut each airport down to 33. So instead of helping it, what it actually did is it hurt it. It cut down my speed. And it's just the way that old technology extended networks worked. It's not a fault of Apple. It's just that's how they worked back then. Today's routers are I shouldn't say most, but the newer ones, what you want to do if you replace the routers, get a mesh network. And with a mesh network, you can add more devices around your house and it doesn't cut down on the speed at all. I use an Eero, which is sold by Amazon now.
How do you spell that?
EERO.
Thank you.
They don't have a hard drive built in. You're not going to be able to use it for a backup per se. But as far as a router is concerned, it's a nice setup. And then what I do, I have my 16-inch MacBook Pro connected to a Thunderbolt display. Whenever I'm in my office here, in my control room, I plug in my hard drive, so it's being backed up on a regular basis. But when I go to the couch, my computer is not being backed up because I'm no longer using my Airport Extreme. But, I might be 2 or 3 days that I'm not in my office, but for the most part, every 2 or 3 days, this thing is getting backed up. The other thing that you can do on the backups is you can use online backup. And I'm not talking about iCloud. iCloud does not back up your Mac. Backs up your iPad, backs up your iPhone, but it does nothing as far as your Mac is concerned. If you tell it to sync your documents and desktop folder, that stuff will be quote unquote backed up because it's going to be in iCloud, but all of your other stuff on your computer is not going to be backed up. So I don't like to, iCloud is not a backup. Depending on what you have on your computer, you may want to do an online backup. Now, this is my work. I have QuickBooks on here and all that. So I do an online backup, and that is constantly backing up. So if something catastrophic were to happen to the house, a fire or something like that, I can call Backblaze and they will send me a hard drive with all of my stuff on it. And that is constantly backing up. There's a couple of ones out there. Backblaze is what I use. It's $5 a month, and I call it an insurance policy. Not everyone needs it, but if you have anything on there, the way that I would say this is, if something were to happen to your computer, let's just say it was stolen, how devastating would that be? If it would be worth, if you wish you would have been paying $5 a month, and be able to get everything, well, then maybe you ought to be paying $5 a month, and just have everything backed up, but hopefully you never use it. That's why I say it's an insurance policy. But like I say, yeah, that's what I would recommend. Obviously, absolutely use Time Machine, and you can even use 2 hard drives. I do that on my computer. I have 2 different hard drives plugged into my Mac here, and what it will do is every hour it'll alternate, because that's how Time Machine works, backs up every hour any new or changed files. So 1 hour it'll go to one hard drive. The next hour it'll go to the next hard drive, and then it'll go back to the other hard drive. So that way, you know, the whole thing with backups is redundancy. Essentially, if my computer were to fail, I have it on 2 different hard drives, and I have it in the cloud. Hopefully I will never use the cloud. Like I say, that is really, you know, that's an extreme case. But I could just go buy another laptop, restore from one of my hard drives, and everything's there. If one of my backups were to fail, I have it on another backup. You know, so essentially what I'm doing is I could actually have 2 failures and I'd still be able to get everything, you know. So you can plug in more than one hard drive for backup. And with the, like say, with the cost of hard drives, again, depending on what you have, I have 25,000 photos. I love taking photos. You know, it would be, my heart would be broken if I lost all those photos. So, you know, it really depends on what you have on there, and, you know, but it's inexpensive to get another backup and just, you know, go with that. So I forgot how I got on that tangent.
Some of us don't save anything, so we need to do something about that.
Yeah. And, you know, the whole thing is with backup, all you have to do is plug it in, and it will take care of it from there. It'll ask you, do you want to use this as a backup? You say yes.
Yeah.
Done. It takes it from there. You don't even have to. So you can go to the store. Let's say you go to Best Buy, and you're going to see a hard drive there formatted for a Mac, and you're going to see the same exact hard drive formatted for PC. There's most likely you're going to be paying a premium for the one that's formatted for a Mac, just because they know that we'll pay more for it. There's really no difference in the hard drive. It was just formatted in the factory for a Mac, and then they charge on you know, an extra fee for that. You don't have to buy that. The Mac will reformat it for Time Machine. It'll say, okay, I'm going to erase everything. And when it erases everything, it's reformatting it. So you don't even have to buy a Mac hard drive. You can just get just a standard old external hard drive, plug it in. The Mac will go from there and say, all right, do you want to use this for Time Machine? Yes, I do. I'm going to erase everything. Okay. And then it takes it over from there. So.
Hey, Dan, I've got a question on photos.
Yeah.
You talked about 25,000. I think I've got 1 million or 500, whatever. But what I had a few years ago, I've got about, well, let me back up. My current laptop is a 2018 MacBook Pro, which has photos on it, but I've only kept it in Mojave.
Okay. Okay.
And I have not upgraded it because they said when we went to Catalina, you had to go from 32-bit to 64-bit, and I was afraid I was going to lose something with my photos. You understand the issue with there between the bits, right?
You, what they're talking about there is the application, not the photos. You won't lose anything with your photos.
Okay, well then maybe you've helped me answer my question. So I have, in addition to this, I have some older laptops, one of which is from this is current to Lion, obviously. Mm-hmm. That tells you how late it is. And the other one I think is High Sierra. And they have iPhoto applications, if you will.
Okay, right, not the Photos app.
Yeah, versus Photos.
Yep.
And so my question is, should I try to update the iPhoto to the Photos before I update the operating system to Catalina/Big Sur? Or should I do the upgrade to Catalina Big Sur before I try to upgrade from iPhotos to Photos?
I don't think it'll matter. The way that it works is so with Line, you have iPhoto. When you upgrade that, yeah, but you're going to need to upgrade it to a newer OS before you can upgrade the photos. Because when you upgrade to the new OS, it puts the photos on there. Then when you open up Photos, it'll say, I'm going to upgrade your iPhoto library.
Because the problem is with that Lion, it's so old that I tried to upgrade it a long time ago and it wouldn't.
Right.
I can't
Well,
remember whether it was
do you have is that where you have all of your photos in that? Is that a lot of photos?
yeah, and part of this, there could be some duplications, but I'm
Right.
coming to and I have a huge external hard drive that I back up everything with. And so my thought is to put everything together finally in photos, I guess, when I finally get everything updated. And then if I have duplicates, then I go through and try to get rid of all the duplicates.
Right. And there are, God, I guess I'm a bigger fan to MacPaw than I realize, because they offer. Let me see if I can. Yep, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, a couple of things. What I would recommend doing in a case like that is maybe going into iPhoto and exporting your photos. Just export them into a different folder. Then when you open up the Photos app, you can import those. So you're not upgrading iPhoto, you're just re-importing all of the photos. That's probably how I would do it, because you're dealing with multiple libraries there, and that's where it gets a little messy.
Yeah.
So, maybe, so you go into the iPhoto, export all of the photos into a separate folder, maybe on that second hard drive or whatever. Then you open up the Photos app and import those all in there. You're going to have some duplicates. Well, with MacPaw, now I have not played around with this, but I'm impressed with Clean My Mac enough to where I believe, it probably works pretty good. Might be Gemini Photos. Looks for duplicates.
And I have an old software that I use. I can't remember, is it Mad Cat or Fat Cat or something?
Okay.
Does that sound familiar?
That does sound familiar.
Seems like, and I guess I'm concerned about the flow, the process flow, that I'm not losing anything if I.
Right. Well, that's why I say I think your best bet is go to the Lion computer, open up iPhoto, select all the photos, export them out. So they're on that external hard drive or whatever. So now they're just sitting in a folder. So you've basically duplicated all those photos. So they're still in your iPhoto library, but they're also just loose. Then you're going to lose some organization. But then what you can do is go to your newer computer, open up the Photos app, and then import all of those photos into there. Then use something like what you're talking about, or this Gemini 2 is the one that I was looking at. Will go through and look for duplicate photos, and you get to review the results. Like I said before, it'll go through and show you. So then you can say, well, that's really not a duplicate, and you can say don't delete it. But then you can kind of pare it down that way. That'll get you a good jump start, and you'll probably have to fine tune it, massage it a little bit, but that'll get you a good jump start.
Okay.
And with this, there's a free download, or you can try yours. Like I say, that vaguely sounds familiar, but you can also just download this to try it, see if it works for you. And then,
so it's Gemini 2. Okay.
Yeah. It's from MacPaw again. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
Dan, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the iPhone 12 interfering with my pacemaker. Is there any latest news on that?
So what they recommend, 6 inches away, and it's only for the iPhone 12s. So if you have a different iPhone, it's only the ones with the magnet on the back. And from what I understand, you don't want to charge it. I think you can still keep it near, although I don't know if I really would, but I think you can still keep it near. I think it's when it is charging is when the issue is. But I don't know a whole lot about it. I can send, did you see the Apple release on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's about to cause me to buy an 11.
So I have a question for you men. How many of you normally, everybody, never mind if you have a pacemaker or not, how many normally keep their phone in their left breast pocket, in their, I call it shirt. Nobody wears a suit anymore that I know.
True.
So
I'll tell you how I do it. I'll be on the couch. Let's see here. Oops. I'll be on the couch. I might put my phone here. You know, if I'm slouching.
Okay, so since you're a young man, just learn to put it on the other shoulder instead.
Oh yeah, I could. I'm not that young. 56. I'm old. So
no, but
that's
Paul, isn't the easy thing? Don't put it in your left breast pocket.
That might be worth considering.
Just put it in your right pant pocket.
Right, that's what I always carry mine anyway. Right now is my right pant pocket.
But then you don't have a problem.
Okay.
It says potentially can
fall asleep with your hand falling over your heart. And I guess to teach your dog and anybody else in the house with you to be aware of that. Dogs can learn stuff like that, I'm told.
I think they're worried about MagSafe connectors.
So here's what Apple says. Apple says that anyone with an implanted cardiac device, they are to keep all iPhone 12 products. So basically anything with a magnet, because the iPhone 12 products have that MagSafe in them, including and it's a strong magnet, including the Mini, Pro, Pro Max, and MagSafe. Any accessories for it, you should keep it 6 inches away. And if it is charging, it should be at least a foot away.
Well, my Apple Watch goes on one of those little doobers.
Well, the Apple Watch is not included in that. They haven't had any issues with that. I think it's just that MagSafe that's on the back of the 12. It's one of those really strong magnets.
Oh, okay. All right. Now I get it. Okay. Thank you.
The magnet on the Apple Watch is not, there's no issue with that. It's that MagSafe, quote unquote MagSafe, with those strong magnets. So if it's 6 inches all the time, if you're charging it, 12 inches.
So mostly, how can you even charge any of these things within 6 inches of your heart? Come on, isn't your charger on the table next to you? Or, I mean, even if it's on your bedside table, that's not 6 inches close to your heart.
Right. Well, charging has to be 12, so 1 foot. But yeah, it's still, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It should be very easy to adjust your living to keep it 6 or 12 inches, let's just say from the front of your body, from your chest.
And, I don't have a pacemaker, so it's I can't say, but that 12, I do love that 12. I have a 12 Pro. The camera, like I say, I take photos. I love that camera on that thing. So,
Dan, this is Leonard. Can I go back to the backup issue?
Yeah.
I'm curious if you have any opinion about the significant difference or preference for conventional, bulky, independently powered hard drive for a backup, or some of these hockey puck size USB powered. You can get a 4 terabyte USB powered backup drive for $100.
Right.
Is that just as good and just as reliable as a more conventional drive?
Yeah, I just unplugged it without telling it to go to sleep. Like I said at the beginning, I just unplugged stuff. This I bought at Sam's Club. Just a little, I think it's 2 terabyte. It was $60.
Yeah.
I use it for backup.
Yeah.
But I have 2 of them. So if this thing were to fail, I do have another one. That's the whole thing is if you're concerned, just on the hard drives, I'm a Western Digital fan. I've really had not a lot of issues with Western Digital. But I also have a Drobo. And for those not familiar with Drobo, that's a RAID drive. So it actually has 5 drives in it. If 2 of them fail, I still have all of my stuff and this and that. I have drives that years and they're still working fine. Yeah, I don't, desktop, the whole thing with these portables, I think if you were to carry it around with you, as a true portable, that's where you might run into the problem. This thing sits on my desk, so it's not that big of a deal. SSD drives are even more, but they're more expensive. But SSD drives are really, those things are the best, but they're more expensive. And for backups, just get the old fashioned like that. You'll be fine. So that's. Linda asked a couple questions. We're back on the Clean My Mac. Can you use those on older Mac OSs? Yes, absolutely. And can she plug in an older backup hard drive without erasing it? Yes, as long as it's formatted for a Mac. So remember how I said if a Mac isn't formatted, that it'll go and erase it. Most likely, if it's an older backup hard drive, it's formatted for a Mac. So yes, you can use that without it erasing it. Now, with back on the backups, one thing you need to be careful of is if you use, what I recommend doing when you have a hard drive as a backup, use it only for that. And here's the reason why. Let's say I plug in this guy, it's backing up my computer, it's Time Machine Backup. But also I want to store some other stuff on here. So I just go and move some other stuff on there to clean up my hard drive, right? So now I got it on here, it's on my backup. Well, guess what you just did? You moved it off of your computer, which means if this were to fail, those files, not your backup, but the files that I just moved over there are going to be lost. So really what you want to do is just use this only for Time Machine Backup. If you want to move other stuff, you need to clean stuff off of your Mac, go and buy another hard drive and move stuff to that. What the idea behind that is, let's say this is a hard drive. This is a case for this, actually. The nice thing about that is, so this is my Time Machine Backup. I move my stuff over to this hard drive. Guess what this Time Machine Backup does? Backs up this too. So now I'm having my a true backup. This thing is going to back up my MacBook Pro, and it's going to back this thing up. So you don't want to use your Time Machine Backup as a backup and as external storage. You really want to just use it for backup, and that's it.
Speaking of backups, I used to use Time Machine, and then I also used another one that would allow me to boot up from that. But I hear you can't use that with Big Sur anymore. You can't boot from an external drive anymore. Is that true?
Yes, I think not Carbon Copy. So there's a couple other backup utilities out there, Super Duper and Carbon Copy Cloner. We use Carbon Copy Cloner at the school. And they have their advantages over top of Time Machine for when you're in an education environment, things like that. One of the things that they allow you to do is actually boot up off of an external hard drive. Big Sur does not allow you to do that. And the M1 also does not allow you to do that. And that's where I think it will eventually. That's where I say it's so new that I think in another 6 months you will be able to do that in some form. It's just they're working out the details. That's one of the pitfalls of having the M1 along with Big Sur is you lose some of that stuff. But my guess is you will see that. So,
speaking of Big Sur, I have a new 16-inch MacBook Pro with Catalina. I've had it about 7 or 8 weeks. And they want me, I keep getting upgrade to Big Sur, upgrade to Big Sur. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a bleeding edge guy. I'm not even a leading edge guy most of the time. I'm old.
Okay.
And, I do a lot of production on it. I'm not as much of a tinker as I was 40 years ago. So the question is, how important, are there any known issues, serious issues about compatibility? And if I were to upgrade to Big Sur, how much would it hurt me in terms of orphaned apps and things like that?
Okay, the biggest thing now, are you using Catalina right now or Mojave?
Yes.
Okay, you're using Catalina. Okay, so you've already jumped the biggest hurdle, the 32-bit, 64-bit.
Yeah, it shipped with that.
Okay, you're good with that. And to cover, somebody asked about that earlier. Now, when we're talking about applications, when you develop an application, you can develop it as 32-bit or 64-bit, 32-bit apps. So it's nothing to do with photos and the bit depth of a photo and all that kind of stuff. So you've jumped to that hurdle. So you should be fine. You know, when Catalina came out, they had a lot of issues in the beginning. I have not heard that with Big Sur. You just don't. There just aren't as many issues with Big Sur. So I think you'd be fine. Now, if those things annoy you, you know, you get those dialogues all the time to upgrade, right?
Yes.
You can turn those off. So where if you were to, I'll share my screen here. The system preferences are now where your software update is for Mac. And if you want to keep, Apple has two different upgrade paths, or update, I would say. They want you to upgrade to the latest OS. But if you don't want to upgrade, they also do keep up with security updates and things like that. So for people that are on Catalina. So what you'll want to do is go under advanced here and just say, install system data files and security updates, install app updates from the App Store, and maybe turn off check for updates. I think, see, this is where I get confused, because really to me, an upgrade is Mac OS Catalina to Big Sur. An update is, you know, security updates or, you know, fixes and things like that. Apple doesn't go by that because I think they're trying to blur the lines. They want everybody to upgrade. I mean, that's plain and simple. They just want everybody to upgrade. On the iPhone, I'm okay with that. On the iPad, I'm okay with that. On the Mac, I am not okay with that. Exactly for what you're talking about. People have older software, or they're in a production environment. They can't risk any issues. So one of these, and unfortunately I don't know because they blur the lines here, but all you have to do is it might be install Mac OS updates. If you were to deselect that, it might not alert you that to upgrade to Mac OS Big Sur, but what it will do is it'll alert you that there's a security update or something like that. But one of those check boxes, if you just want to hold off. But, you know, what you could do is, you know, upgrade, you know, make sure you do a backup and, you know, do a test for, you know, a few days and see if it works fine, and always restore it back, you know, to your old one.
The reason I'm asking is, about a year ago, I replaced my SSD in my late 2014 MacBook Pro with a terabyte. And it was wonderful, except that it orphaned a lot of things, including my ancient Microsoft Office and several other third-party apps.
Yeah.
I mean, Catalina, what happened is, to reformat the new drive after it was installed, I had to it downloaded Catalina, which I hadn't planned to do, and that caught me by surprise.
Right.
So, you know, I had to buy another Office and a few other things and find workarounds. But I don't want to go through that again until I.
Yeah, no, Catalina, they really that was a big update in the regards of exactly what you're talking about. Now, Big Sur is an update visually. It looks like a newer, fresher OS, but in all honesty, anything in Catalina will pretty much work in Big Sur. So if you're using Catalina, you'll be fine. Really, Catalina was the jump for that kind of stuff.
Well, follow-up question on that, Dan. So if I'm in Mojave now, should I directly go to Big Sur?
Yeah, I think that's fine. You know, just make sure you don't have any 32-bit apps that you use.
So same issue, yeah. Okay.
Yep, just that issue alone. Yep.
One-
Somebody asked in the chat, can we downgrade if we have an M1? No, M1s absolutely need Big Sur. Did I read that right? Yeah, when I get an M1, can I downgrade? Nope. So if you get an M1, a Mac with an M1, you are going to have Big Sur. That is a
Interesting.
requirement. So, and how do I update to the next OS from High Sierra? Have MacBook Pro 2012. Ooh, I don't know if you can. Maybe you could go to Mojave, but the way that they did their updates back then, I think, was through the App Store. Apple's jumped around a little bit. You know, their Mac OS updates used to be in System Preferences, then it went into the App Store. Now it's back at System Preferences. So High Sierra, it might be in the App Store, but you being that it's that old of a Mac, which is fine, just an old Mac, but it'll still work fine. I think the highest you'll be able to go is Mojave, if that. So, just because it's so old. But I tell people, you'll see a lot of changes across these different Mac OSs, but in all actuality, it still works the same way. Sure, there's going to be some little things here and there, but anyone that's on High Sierra, they jump on Big Sur, it's roughly going to be the same thing. You're going to have your Apple menu. You're going to have your menus at the top. It's going to have your dock. Your Finder's going to work the same way. You have your sidebar. I mean, it pretty much works the same, so you're not going to, see a whole lot of changes there, or at least a lot of changes in how you use it. Somebody said you can start up using an external drive using Big Sur. Command R, then go to, yes, with, I think maybe M1s, I don't think you can. Maybe I should have clarified that, but I don't, it could be right. I know that I've read little issues. I don't have an M1. I'm waiting for the MacBook Pro. And as soon as the MacBook Pro comes out, I want to upgrade to the M1, but I'm gonna hold off until that is introduced. So. What else do we have here? Consider what basic things to keep things running properly. Cleaning, security, backup. So we covered a little bit of this there. Cleaning, you could use something like Clean My Mac, but in all honesty, if you open up Clean My Mac, it runs those maintenance scripts. Those are basic Unix maintenance scripts. Your Mac will run those on its own eventually. All Clean My Mac does on some of that stuff is just force it to run it now. But Unix has, I think there's 3 different scripts that it runs. It has a daily script, I think a weekly script, and a monthly script. And these are just basically cleanup kind of things. So it will eventually do some of that stuff on its own. So you don't necessarily need to have something like Clean My Mac. If you're not running into any problem, there's no reason to have Clean My Mac or anything like that. I really just downloaded it for myself because somebody asked about it. What did I? God, well, it's been a few years, so I can't really even remember. It might help find. It does help find larger files. So that might be where I was looking. It has other tools that make things easy to use. But if you're looking for larger files on the tips, my favorite trick is, I'm going to share my screen here. If you want to see what is taking up space on your Mac, there's a lot of different things that you can do that will show your larger files and sort them and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to go to my users folder here. And what I like to do is turn on, you're actually going to see it's on here. I like to turn on where I can see how big my folders are. And the way that I do that is if you go into view and go to show view options, you're going to see an option where it says calculate all sizes. So what this does is this will calculate all of the sizes of your folders that are showing. This is not on by default, and with slower computers, and I'm going computers 10 years old or whatever, this actually added a lot of resources because it's sitting there constantly calculating, you know, how many files are in a folder and this, that, and the other. And if you have a lot of files, you know, it took up some processing power. With the newer Macs, it's not that big of a deal. So now what I can do when this is turned on, and if it's taking up too much power, you can always just turn it off. But what I can do when it's turned on is I can sort by size here, and I can easily see now that my parallels is taking up the most space on my computer. It's taking up 27 gigabyte. I have a couple of parallel drives apparently in there. My downloads, I have 26 gigabyte in my downloads folder. So now I can easily go through here. If I click on the arrow, it's going to sort by, well, there's my problem. I have a Big Sur parallels sitting there in my downloads folder. So if I wanted to delete that, I could just go and delete it. And it would reflect under here, that would be gone. Pictures, this is always going to be a big one for people, and there's probably not a whole lot you can do because, you know, depending on how many photos you have. My personal library, I think, is 150 gigabyte. You know, and again, if you have a lot of photos, it could be more than that even. But at least it gives you a glimpse into what is taking up most of your space. And it does it, to me, in a nice, organized manner. I can just sort and just see, okay, well, music's taking up 887 megabyte. What is it? And you just keep digging down. I have a Pink Floyd album in there. Well, if I'm not listening to it, I can delete it, and that'll free up space. So that's a nice, easy trick to figure out space, you know, and what is taking up space. And this works on any Mac. Newer Macs have a nice little thing in here. If I go to About This Mac, we have a window that opens up. Try it again. About This Mac. There it is. And I go to Storage. And then if we go to Manage, I'm able to also see what is taking up all the space. But this organizes it by, you know, what type of a file it is, which is nice. But I'm more old school, and I like to see it, you know, I want to see what folder is, you know, and then I can actually delete the file myself. So you can use a combination of both of these to figure out what is taking up space. And if you find out that this little trick here takes up a lot of processing power, or you don't really want to have it, you know, on, once you figure out how much space is taken up, you can go back under view, go to show view options and turn it off. And now you can see it doesn't tell me how much space because they're folders. It still will tell me for individual files, but not for folders. So that's a little trick that I've been using for years to help me figure out what is taking up space. When someone would come in with a Genius Bar appointment and, you know, they were running low on space, that's the first thing that I did is I show all view options or whatever, and then, you know, kind of go from there and help them figure out, okay, do you need this file? Because it's taking up this much space. And then we can kind of go through and see what's going on there. So virus detection. You know, I mentioned this earlier. I don't have it. I don't recommend anything in particular. So I'd say no, you know, not that necessary. Luckily, the Mac is still pretty good with not having any viruses. And I'm not saying you can't get one, but I don't know of one person that has virus software on their computer. And I know quite a few people that have Macs. So my recommendation, No, you don't necessarily need it. Someone asked about the virtual background. How you know, I have a control, you know, obviously this is a virtual background. I wish it was my real background, but it's not. But what you can do with Zoom and with other ones is use a green screen, and it's really pretty easy to do. If you don't use a green screen, this is what happens when you don't use a green screen. I'm going to turn my green screen off. We'll see. If you notice, my microphone, my hand, you know, things just kind of, and if you have two people, it the software has an algorithm and it's looking for one person and it tries to do a good job, and they actually do a really good job of figuring out that one person. But obviously my microphone is not, you know, my glass, you know, coffee. So green screen gets rid of all that, because what it does, it's the old-fashioned green screen. You know, now you can see my microphone, you know, it's all good. The old-fashioned green screen is just a great way to help out. And if I had my wife here, we'd both be able to be in here and it look like we're both in the control room. Green screens are really easy. I'm going to turn mine off here. Got from Amazon. It's just a green, and it doesn't have to be any particular color. With Zoom, when you turn on that you have a green screen, you can actually pick the color. And so if it's a little off, I mean, there is a specific green color, but you know, if you get something that's a little off, you can go to a fabric shop and just buy a piece of fabric. This one is a green, you know, the so-called color green, and it's really made for photography. So the way that it works in photography, the way that they use green screens is they go like this, and they will put the product on the floor, and then the whole thing is a green screen. So it's like that. So when I first got this, that's how I did it. I did it like that. And it has a nice little curtain rod up here. And, you know, I just slid, you know, a curtain rod that I bought from Amazon again, and did that. But it wasn't wide enough. If you know, obviously I'm in landscape mode. So in my infinite wisdom, I turned it that way. It doesn't have a spot for a curtain rod, but if you were to look up, I'll turn it, let's see if you can see it. It's held with safety pins, I believe, is what I used. So it's a homemade little, and when I'm done with this Zoom meeting, all I do is just pull it back, and it tucks behind a closet door, and it's done. So green screens are really quite easy, and you can even buy these freestanding ones, you know, if you don't have a designated spot. Obviously, I have an office here with a designated spot, but you can buy them, you know, and they're relatively inexpensive. You know, you don't need anything really fancy. You're going to see I have some light bleeding through here. There's a window, sun's out. So when I go back into my control room, you can see it here a little bit. But for the most part, it's pretty good. So now as I close this up, so someone asked what happens. Let's see, what did they say? Something about my control room when digress. You know, this would be it. You know. Yeah, now I'm back. So, you know, green screens are relatively easy to work with, and the nice thing is they're far better, like with your hair and you know different things. They're just obviously better, and most everything handles a green screen. So easy to set up. Just needed some fabric, hang it behind you, and you'll be good. Someone said macOS has antivirus built in. I wouldn't call it antivirus, but yes, they do. Apple can. That's another reason why, you know, Apple's on top of it as well. They can push updates out that will, you know, go and fix stuff. So, yeah, it's just not necessary. So, Looks like you're seeing a little bit of my cat over here. Must be in front of the green screen. Let's see here. What else do we have here? Paul is trying to ask a question.
Where are you located, Dan?
I'm located in Holland, Michigan, on Lake Michigan. So we're closer to Chicago than we are to Detroit. Although my wife is from Flint, from that area. She hates it when I say you're from Detroit. You know, she's like, we're an hour and a half away from Detroit. You know,
so you guys have had some cold weather lately, I'm thinking.
We have, but up until last week, I actually had to look this up. I was working with the Alaska Use Group and, you know, talking about snow and things like that. But up until last week, now we got dumped on in the last week. So, but prior to this, normally we have about 50 inches of snow at this time. We had 17. Now that has changed in the last week. I don't think we are up to 50 by far. You know, we might be up to 30 or 40. But yeah, it's been a different winter for us. But it is cold. But the sun's out, which is nice. I'll actually be in your neck of the woods in end of March. Yes, end of March. We have a wedding to go to in Plano. So.
Oh, okay, good. Because it's good you're not here now, because we're expecting maybe teens or below 8 degrees and maybe 4 or 5 inches of snow in Dallas, of all places.
Wow! And you guys aren't set up for it. You know,
we are not
with us. We can get dumped on. We have it. I mean, they've shoveled. They have snowplows for our sidewalks. You know, yeah. You guys, we have heated streets here in Holland.
Wow.
So downtown Holland, it's about 4 blocks. I think there's about. My wife would know more about it. She's a big fan of our tulip time and all that, which they tell we have America's largest snowmelt system. It might be up to 10 miles, but all of our sidewalks downtown are all heated, and even the road is all heated.
Good night.
So we have no snow down there, virtually no
snow.
Cool. Great for walkers and runners, and you know, it really is a neat system. So. I wish someone would answer how to get a Chihuahua to stay still while taking a 3D picture. Yeah, exactly. Yes. You know, it's like I'll just go outside of the Chihuahua when my friends know I like to take pictures. You know, and you know, when you're at night, it's a little bit darker. Of course, they always want to do this, and I'm like, sit still. You know, I wish I could tell my friends and my wife to just sit still. The camera can't move that fast in this low light, even with LiDAR. So, let's see, some of my other favorite. So I mentioned Clean My Mac. Someone asked about, you know, some of my favorite things. Email maintenance. Oh, that was maintenance. Favorite tricks. The one that I just showed you. Another favorite trick of mine is putting the applications folder in the dock. And I'll show you why I do that. So for those of you that don't know, hardly anyone ever uses the Launchpad, but the Launchpad, if I click on it, you know, we get our iOS style, you know, things. I don't necessarily use this. You know, it's not sorted properly. So it's, you know, I'm sitting here going like this and looking for things. And I know you can move it around like iOS and all that, but if you click and hold on this, you do get a list of all of your apps. So you can easily select from an app, but you have to click and hold on it. And again, not that that's a big deal, but I click and then it shows. So what I like to do is add the actual applications folder to the dock, and I'll show you why. I get the same kind of benefit. So I'm going to take this, move it down to my dock here. It's still, you know, my applications folder didn't actually move, it just added it to the dock. But now what I can do when I click on this, I get all my nice big icons and I can just swipe through. It's in alphabetical order. So that's one of the first things that I do when I go set up a Mac, is I put my applications folder in there, and then I can easily just find my Mac that I want. What you'll want to do when you do that, you can set up different views when a folder is in the dock. If I click and hold, oops, if I control click on it, what you want to do is, it's set to automatic, so maybe it'll go to grid, but if it doesn't go to grid, it can go to a list view. Maybe you like that list view. I prefer the grid view. You can also go to a fan, which really isn't helpful because then it just shows your first 5 apps. But what I like to do is go to the grid, and then you just have a nice little easy way to select your apps. Let's see, I see there's a question here. How do I get different backgrounds? I just download them. I just search for backgrounds. A lot of times I will use my own photos. Yeah, just download them, and then I go into Zoom and I can add them as a background, and then with the green screen, it just kind of does its own thing. I also use desktop stacks. I don't know if people are familiar with those, but I thought that this was a great thing. I generally keep my computer pretty clean. Now, this is a demo account that I do all my recordings on and all that. So obviously this is like really clean. But what you can do with the Mac, because as most people have seen, your desktop can get pretty messy. You download files to it and this, that, and the other, and all of a sudden it's just full of files. Let's move some files. So I'm going to move these over here on my desktop. And let's see, I'll move these here. So I got some pictures on there. I've got some documents, different things like that. They're kind of scattered. So one of the first things that you do is you will go and clean up by name. And now it just puts them over on the right side. Okay, that's good. And they're sorted by name. I like to keep it cleaned up. When I move things over here, I wanted to move back over to the right. So then what you do is you sort by name. So I clean up, but then I can also sort. Now I can't move it, so now everything is going to be over on the right. But as I add more things, let's just go and duplicate these. It just keeps, I'm going to go and duplicate some, as I'm adding files, it just gets busier and busier and busier. Well, with desktop stacks, which were introduced with Mojave, I believe, what it will do is it will keep these organized by stacks. Basically, it's almost like a virtual folder. So when I go up to view here and I say use stacks, watch what happens here. It just puts everything in stacks. Now I have all of my images here. I have all of my PDFs, so it's stacking them by what type of document it is. I have other, so it doesn't know what they are. So if I want to look at all my images, when I click on this, there's all my images. Click on it again, it closes it. I want to see all my PDF documents. Click on it. I want to see what all other is. And you can actually open up multiple of these. So you could go back to your old, there's my messy desktop, but stacks helps keep it a little cleaner. So now, I could duplicate all this. But when I go and put it in a stack, they're just all there in a nice little stack. Turn desktop stacks off, and we can see we have a little bit of a mess. And then if I sort by name, my desktop's just going to get more and more full, but you go back over to use stacks. So I thought that was a great tool because I've seen a lot of people, including myself, you just store stuff on your desktop. It's almost like it's a temporary storage. That's actually how I use it, as a temporary storage. But, temporary for how long. All of a sudden it can get pretty full. So this helps keep it managed. And then what I'll do every once in a while, you know, I'll just go through here and I'll just like, yeah, I don't need those photos. You know, so you can kind of, or I put them into a folder, or, you know, eventually organize them. You know, I have this other here. I have the application. I don't need an alias to this on my desktop, so that I can delete it, you know, kind of thing. I don't need VLC and IINA. You know, those are installers. This was for my website. I don't need that. So then you can kind of clean it up when you expand a desktop stack. So I love desktop stacks.
How about a related question, Dan?
Mm-hmm.
In the old days, I remember the mantra was the more stuff you have on the desktop, and I can't remember whether it was the more processing power it uses in the background or more memory it ties up. Is that still true?
Not so much anymore, but it's still a good rule of thumb to keep your desktop clean. So what he's talking about there is, you know, your screen is constantly drawing, right? And when you're looking at your desktop, it's, you know, when there's stuff on there, it took up resources. That was always the old way of thinking. So you didn't really want to have a lot of stuff on your desktop, because the more stuff you had on there, the more processing power it took. I don't know how true that was, but it's something that even at Apple that we would recommend people to not keep stuff on their desktop.
Thanks.
Again, I don't think Apple's has changed anything per se, but I think it was just slower computers. If that was true, it's just because computers were that slow. You know, it's one of those things where computers are getting to be so fast, it's not necessarily an issue anymore. But I think it's still a good habit to keep the desktop relatively clean. You know, this is a nice clean background, but if some people will put, you know, their own pictures in the background and all that, and then it even makes it more difficult to find when you have a lot of documents and you have a busy background. You know, I think, you know, you may think that it's really, you know, it could get frustrating because you can't find that file because it's on a busy background, and you have a lot of files. So, you know, even outside of the processing power, you know, it could ease the processing power up here too by keeping it clean. So. Let's see here. I'll go with one other tip that I really like to do, and that is in a Finder window. And I just added this to my site, actually. Down at the bottom here, you're going to see I have the status bar. This is not on by default. And with the status bar, what it basically tells you is how many items are in a folder, how many of them are selected, and how much space is on your Mac. So now I can say I have six of 44 selected, and you know, there's 372. It's just something that I've always done. Maybe when hard drives were small. If you have a small hard drive, this can come in handy because you can easily monitor how much space you have on your Mac. A Mac, if you have less than 10% space on your Mac, they don't like it. Mac OS doesn't like that, and you're going to run into strange issues. They can be all over the board. One of the first things when someone talks about just, I have an issue with this, and then I also have an issue with something else, and they're unrelated, first go-to is check your hard drive space. It can wreak havoc if you don't have a lot of hard drive, or over 10%. And if you have a small hard drive, that can add up pretty quick in today's world. So by adding that status bar, you can easily see how much space you have left. And to add the status bar, it's under View in the menu bar, and you're going to see status bar here. Now, the reason why it says hide, obviously, is because I have it shown. So if I go and hide it, it's no longer there. Now I go and show. The other one that I use is the path bar. So everything has a path. When I'm looking at a file here, where is this file? Well, I know it's in my desktop, but if I go down to the path bar here, I can see it's in my desktop, which is in Dan's tutorials, which is in users, which is on my Macintosh. Two reasons why I like this. it keeps top of mind of how your Mac is structured. For those that you know, are not familiar with how a Mac is structured, if you're not familiar with how it's structured, it can be very easy to lose a file because you don't know where things are. I look at the old filing cabinet. That's my favorite analogy. You know, folders can be within a folder, can be in a folder. But if you don't know where those folders are in that filing cabinet, you're just going to start rifling through them all to find something. But if you know how it is structured, then it makes it easier when you save something. Oh yeah, that was over in here or whatever. So this, when you turn this on, it just makes it a little bit easier. If I go to downloads here, do not back up, I can see that do not back up is in my downloads folder. So it just keeps it top of mind. That's all. Just a visual indication of where a file or folder is. So those two are things that I immediately do when I'm on a new Mac as well. Turn both of those on. Again, you won't, the path isn't necessarily going to, well, it's just going to help you keep mind of how things are organized. So, then how I have my desktop, well, I've showed you a lot of stuff of how I have my desktop set up. I have, you know, these two, whoops, where'd my cursor go? I have these two things set up. Another thing that you can do is you can customize a toolbar here. And so I will customize this. I will put a delete key up in my toolbar. To customize a toolbar, you just hold down the control key. There we go. Customize a toolbar. And you have all these buttons here. Well, here's the default one. So I have view, group, share, and all that. Well, I like to have delete in there, so I just take delete. I move it up there. You're going to see I have a green plus. Now, when I want to throw something away, like this do not backup, this was something that I used for a recording, how you can exclude a backup, how you can exclude a file from being backed up. I no longer need that. I just have to go up to delete and it deletes it. Just something that you know, I can select those, click on delete, and it'll delete all of those. So I no longer need the Zoom package. I know I could click and drag it down here, but you know, I have my hand on my coffee here, and like I just want to get rid of this. I can just go up to delete and delete. So, but you have to add that to the toolbar in order to have that. So that's another favorite thing that I do. So, anything else? I'll let you, because you guys, I know you have meeting things you have to go over, I'm assuming. I think I saw that earlier. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. Like I say, I'll be in your neck of the woods actually in end of March. Like I say, we have a wedding to go to. One of our nephews plays for the LA Rams, and he's from the Dallas area, so he's getting married, and we're going to go down there. We've been to a few TCU games and different things back when he was in college football. So, but
excellent. Well, thank you a lot, Dan. We appreciate your presentation. You answered a ton of questions.
Yeah,
and Dan,
no problem.
Are you recording this, Dan?
I am not. I'm not hosting this, so I don't know if you guys are recording it or
like
not.
our regular meetings are. So.
Okay. And also, I will add in here, once I get done with this meeting, I'm going to add a coupon code. Is it, you guys go by ACD, Apple something Dallas?
Core of Dallas. Apple Core of Dallas. The
Apple Core
of Dallas.
The Apple Core Dallas. So, but I see your website is ACD, right?
Yes.
So what I'll do, if anybody wants to join the site, I'm going to enter a coupon code. So if you just go to my site and when you check out, I'll put it on all the plans. There's a little link there that says have a coupon. If you enter in ACD, you'll get a 25% discount, and I'll do that immediately when I leave this meeting. So if anybody wants to join, but you kind of get an idea of what I do. You know, I do these AMA meetings just exactly like this, about every other week. And then I also have, you know, over 1,300, might be over 1,400 lessons now. And a lot of the lessons, what I'm finding out is they come from, you know, people like you asking questions, and I start hearing the same questions from different groups. So I'm like, oh, I need to create a lesson on that. A good example is someone just asked, how do I open up a WMV file? My daughter is a PC user, and she sends me Windows Media File. QuickTime doesn't open it. So I just created a lesson and, you know, shared it. And so now anybody that's a member of my site will be able to see, you know, the different ways that you can open up a WMV file. So I'm starting to do that a little bit more. So it's almost like a custom kind of, you know, lesson, but it's going to be shared with all of my members, obviously. But anyway, check out the site and use the coupon code ACT. I'll have that set up in the next 5-10 minutes. And you have a 2-week free trial. And, you know, if you don't like it, if my tutorials don't fit your style, I take no offense in that. We all, you know, take things in differently. So, but you can try it before you buy it, and then, you know, go from there. And you can always ask me a question. So with that, I will leave you to the rest of your meeting, and it was a pleasure meeting all of you. And yeah, if you want to do it again, just let me know. All right.
Thank you.